welcome back to our discussion. I have Tracy, I'm Tammy, this is Molly and Nolan, and we have Tabitha with us again. And now we'd like to start with a recap if you want to do that, Molly.
So, as you guys just watched, Dr. Lori is talking about the psychoeducation, and she is talking about the reticular activating system, or the RAS. So just as a quick refresher, the RAS acts as the filter for our brain. So it tells our brain what to order. So what information that we're going to pull out and what information that we're going to be constantly looking for. And this can be shaped by past experiences, and it can be shaped by what we tell our brain to think about and to focus on. So, little recap about the RAS.
Thanks, Molly. I really think that this is important compared to one of the things we talked about earlier, which is our soil, our emotions, and how our filter can really make a difference on how we feel and experience the world and relationships around us, is how we're ordering our brain according to our soil.
Yeah. And how I don't know if she says it in the video, but like how if you go to a restaurant and you order fried pickles and then you expect the waitress to then bring you fried pickles because it's what you asked for. So if you tell your brain, I want this, then your brain says you will have that. Mm-hmm. So then that affects everything that you see in every environment that you go into. Mm-hmm. Like from big emotional stuff to just like physical stuff. I remember one time in, I think I might have been like a sophomore in high school, but I was taking a geometry test and I could not focus on the test because someone in the class was chewing bubble gum, and I started counting how many times I heard them chew to where I couldn't even like read my test, and I quite literally got up and walked out. So that was rough. Right? That's a brain order.
Yes. So you were having a difficulty being in charge of your RAS. Like your RAS picked something to focus on, and you didn't have the tools at that time to redirect it and order something else. So like if you'd ordered the pickles and fried fish came, you would say, oh, I ordered pickles. But in this moment with that student chewing, you didn't have the skills yet to reorder a silent room or to ask for help or assistance from a teacher. So you did the only thing you need to do, which was flee.
Then leave the whole situation behind.
Leave the whole situation behind. And, adults even do that sometimes in relationships. People at work. I had a friend whose husband could not stand to hear people chew. And if someone was chewing anything near them, like he couldn't think or concentrate on anything else. So his work would just totally shut down, and he would call and just like lament to her on the phone, like, I can't do anything. But he didn't have any coping skills to ask for help or to see if they could eat somewhere else. So we do have to have coping skills sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how much information is coming through our brain at once?
Well, the RAS, was it?
Over 1 million things entering at one time, but we only comprehend like 7 things.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks to that RAS, it's acting as the filtering out.
I mean, you just think about in this room, like how many things that we know we could see at one time.
Or even like how he created us. So every little hair follicle, if you were to touch different parts of your head, you can feel it. But right now sitting, if you think about every piece of hair is inserted into your head.
Yeah.
Even like that.
Feel it.
Yeah. We're not thinking about, number 5,622 back here.
Yes, our brains are amazing like that. So the RAS helps us have an experience with God, right? So we can filter things out and we can truly focus. I think somebody earlier said, just locking eyes with Jesus, focusing and filtering out some of the things that are around us so we can focus on the thing that is most important.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have an example? Like practical example?
Focusing
on Jesus, where you're really intentional about seeing what he brings you. Or like making sure, like how do you practically order your brain to see Jesus? I think is my question.
I think Dr. Lori gave us a really good challenge about every time we cross the threshold, like we should be asking, what is Jesus doing there? And I think that sort of starts training us to be looking for. So instead of being distracted by what the temperature is or what the carpet feels like, have crossed that threshold. So now I'm looking for Jesus and what he's doing in this environment. So I think that's a pretty good prayer. And I actually have doing that and I love it. And I'll catch myself and be like, oh, I've gone 3 places and haven't looked for Jesus yet. So my RAS will catch up with me and be like, oh yeah, you had a job to do.
Yeah.
I think about when my daughter was young, there was a tornado and it was coming right for our house. And so we had to take shelter. And so this was just one that was going to be devastating. And they were telling everybody you need to be below ground. But we didn't have that option. And so we were in a closet and she was really little. And she said, we should pray. And she could, because she was being taught to look for Jesus. And so we prayed and she was like, okay, why are we still here? Because she knew that she had trained her brain to trust. And we were like, well, we need to just give it a minute. And she's not understanding why her brain just doesn't operate that way. She's like, you told me to trust in Jesus. So why are we still here? And not 2 seconds later, it came on the radio that the tornado had switched paths for the first time since it had been on the ground.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And she was kind of obnoxious about it. She was like, see? But she was focused on Jesus.
Childlike faith.
Where sadly we were focused on safety and all of those things and the destruction that could come instead of focusing on what we should have been focused on.
But when we tell our brain, like, if we don't tell our brain what to focus on or what to think about because of survival and simplicity, then however it's been wired is going to be the natural way that it continues to go. So it can be from being in the shelter and not knowing about the tornado, or it can be a whole identity.
Absolutely.
Like if you wake up and you're thinking constantly like, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be able to do anything with my life, I'm not enough, I can't please anyone, like I suck. You start to take that on as, then this is who I am and this is who I'm presenting to the world because this is the only filter and lens that I can view myself and others around me.
You put yourself in a prison where you don't connect with anyone because you're always self-focused. And it goes back to insecurity and pride of, I got to make sure that I'm okay. And what if it's not? And I mean, it's just a facade that you're wearing. And then you put yourself in a prison to not even be able to connect with someone right next to you or family or even Jesus. You've knocked him out to where he's not even a part of the conversation anymore.
And that person that's done that to themselves, if you talk to them, they'll say that nobody's around. God's not anywhere to be found.
That's right.
They're so lonely when actuality, there are people around. They just can't see them or connect with them.
Yeah.
God's never left. He's always there, but they can't because of the filter that they're seeing through, because the way their RAS has been ordered, that's how they feel and experience things.
And because that's how they are presenting themselves, that's how people are going to see them and start to treat them.
It can be a really hard cycle.
It's kind of that, people that don't trust attract people that can't be trusted.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's sort of it's sinful. And I was having a conversation with my sister about this the other day because it was like, so whatever you're thinking about, and so often in the news and other things, they're going to talk about the juicy points. I think Dr. Lori talks about this a little bit because that's what gets us interested. So we've sort of trained our brains to think about see the tragedy and the horror and the negative. But really, it's up to us because if you look around and you start to see the wonder in other people and in your environment, that's a choice to honor God and what he's done. And we don't wake up and look out the window and say, you did it again, God. The sun rose. Every day you do it. It came up. It's just amazing. Thank you. You see me. It's just you should look out there and say, oh my gosh, I'm breathing a breath again. Thank you for this day. I mean, there's so much more if you want to count your blessings, but we have to make that decision. Do we want to honor him? And do we want to look for the good? And what lens do we want to see the world with?
Yeah. Even thinking about couple interactions with old friends or family recently that I've had, you sit down and you start having a conversation, and just listening to what the topics that they bring up or how they view the world. It even showed me like how much I have changed, and so much, and in this time of trying to rewire the way that I was thinking growing up without Christ in the middle of it. And so then it's like, wow, this is what I was in the middle of, and seeing it firsthand. It's like, thank you, Jesus, for what you've done in my life, for leading me to this point. And it's like, I don't want to go, I'm not going back, and I want to continue to move on in what you've called me to do.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And I think that, another example of that, and I've laughed about this a lot, but it's just, whatever you're ordering, whatever you're focusing on, it's going to be what your brain brings you. And so and again, you just said that getting together with friends, but it all works together, the connection with God and the connection with community. And the community is so important because they will help lift you up and point out your blind spots where you didn't know what you were ordering was really not. There's something that needs healing. And so you're ordering something that it's really not applicable to what you're going through. And the funny story that I'm trying to share is that I was in a season where I was really very much focused on what was going on in the world and the agendas and the culture and questions of identity and who am I and our, sexuality and everything else. And one of my daughters was talking to me, and she said, because they were huge fans of Dora the Explorer and Diego, these cartoons. And she said, and I think I'm going to do the date, but this is irrelevant. If I get the date wrong, it won't matter. She said, Mom, did you know that Dora came out in 2004? And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, Dora came out in 2004. And I said, Dora the Explorer? And she said, yeah. Dora is gay? and she was like, what? What are you talking about? No, Dora's like, it was released in 2004. But I had ordered my brain to recognize all things, what's going on.
Coming out.
And so it came out, it meant I was thinking, anyway, it just goes to show, it was a funny example, and it showed me, it was blatant that, oh my gosh, Aunt Nolan, you've got to, check yourself and you might need healing. It was a really poignant moment for me. It built a memory. So anyway, I just think we've got to be aware of what we're thinking and have that community to help us, lift us up and point out where we're kind of just gotten just a little bit off and might need to go to Jesus and heal in places, because whatever we think on, that's going to affect everything.
Yeah, that's right. Letting our favorite scriptures really shape what that RAS is ordered.
Right.
I mean, God's word, like you said, protecting our hearts, protecting our minds, and just letting the scripture really be in charge of what's shaping that filter rather than culture or family. But choosing what's shaping that filter. As adults, we get to do that.
And then I think about my mom, and when she had cancer, she focused on Jesus the whole time, and she lost all her hair, of course, and she was teaching her children's Sunday school class when she was able to, and she believed that every child could thank God for something. And those kids knew that. And most of the time, this was like they were third graders, and so a lot of times it was just them repeating what the one before them said.
Yeah.
But this particular day, she felt good, and it was probably almost the last class she got to teach, and she was there, and they were amazed because she always had different wigs.
Oh, yeah.
And so the kids were asking questions, so she took her wig off. And she let the kids touch her head, and they were so excited, and because that was just really cool. Well, that day when they prayed, one little boy, thank God he had hair. Well, my mom was ecstatic because she got to hear his very first genuine prayer. And had she not been focused on that and not allowed her RAS to go there, she wouldn't have heard that. Now, his mom was not near as excited as my mom was, because she shared that thinking that she would rejoice too, and she was a little mortified. But but that was so I can't help but think about that every time we think about this.
Yeah, she had her RAS ordered on the right thing.
Absolutely, and taught others how to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really beautiful.
And what happens when we sit and we say, like, Lord, I want to see you, and like reveal yourself, and we want to know you, and we want to press in, and Jesus, take me deeper. Oh, but I don't want to order my brain.
Right.
Like, then how are we even expecting to heal anything? Or how would we expect ourselves to see him if we're not willing to exchange our filter, if we're not willing to do the thing that's required to renew our mind to see him? Right. But we're saying, we sit and we pray and we say we want it, but not if it's going to take effort.
Right. We want it if it's easy and it's
immediate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it fixes something or fulfills a need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's an ugly thing to think about, isn't it?
That's when it's transactional.
Yes. We're chasing that more than we are Jesus.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But then even with the people that are around us, and Dr. Lori talks about like novelty is something that dings our RAS. And so I imagine it's like ding dong, ding dong. But like when we order our brain to find Jesus, then we don't miss what he's doing. And when we don't miss what he's doing, then we can freely give to the people that are around us to help them not miss it. And so what happens when you get someone then after you're set free who's in front of you, who seems to be hurting or who needs something, and you just start calling out destiny in them, and you just start seeing them, that's going to ding something in their brain that says, maybe I should pay attention, or maybe this is different. Because now you're looking for him, and you'll find him even in the most unlikely of places with the people right in front of you.
That reminds me of, and just calling out that destiny and seeing the wonder in others. I just love, I don't know if you've all seen The Chosen, but there's this one episode where Jesus is with the children, and there's this little girl that comes first with her little friend. His name's, I think it's Joshua. And he's really shy and kind of hiding behind her. And she's talking and doing most of the talking. And Jesus addresses him and says, and what do you think, Joshua the brave, or Joshua the courageous? He speaks life into who he is before he even starts acting that way. And he's speaking, his prophetic words of destiny.
Design.
Yes. And so even when he's not acting necessarily brave, he calls him that. And just the power that our words speaking over someone else, the truth of who God says they are, the power of that. It was really, really, really neat. And what if we all did that and saw the wonder?
Yeah. Did that for each other. What a gift to our community if we're ordering our RAS to get his perspective about the people around us, and then we're brave enough to act on that and to speak it out.
And because our brain, Dr. Lori says it's wired for survival and simplicity. And so I think sometimes we'll take like a first impression, or because this went wrong this one time, now I'm going to make some kind of inner vow or inner something to make sure like I never do that again, so that it doesn't go poorly. Even if you did it well 300 times before that, but the one time that it goes wrong, and then you start boxing yourself in, and you're not experiencing Jesus, and then you're sitting around wondering why you're not experiencing
You're
him.
trying to control it.
Yes. Yikes. That's a little terrifying.
Yeah.
Whenever what we're built for is to call out the destiny in people and in the body and discover more of him.
Yeah.
Right.
Living in that place of hope and wonder in ourselves and in others, rather than just seeing yuck.
I remember I've done this with, I think we all have, but I've done it where like you make just snap impressions on people. Like you meet them once or you meet them a couple of times and they do something that just doesn't sit well. And then you kind of hold them captive in that, because every time you're around them again, your brain is ordered to base things off of what's happened in the past. And so then you bring that to them when that's not even what Jesus assigned to their character. And in fact, what if that wasn't even them? Because our battle's not with the flesh and blood. Right. So actually, what if that has nothing to do with them? And it's just a small shift in perspective that makes it to where you don't miss what he's doing. And that's why we're here.
I think this has been a good discussion on the RAS and how important it is to just submit that to the Lord, to make sure we're giving him all of our thoughts, and to just let that be the preparation for our soil.
Yeah.
Ready for wrap up, Molly?
I am. So here's what I'm hearing. If you find yourself waking up with the same thought processes and the same thoughts of that I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, or this is too hard, or I don't know what I'm doing, and speaking those things over you, what will happen is what you order is what your brain will bring to you. And so that's how you'll see yourself, and that's how you'll see others around you. You will have this filter that isn't from the Lord, that he wants to come in and remove those blinders so that you would see him in everything. He's everywhere if we would just look for him. And he wants to reveal himself. He's desperate to be known. That's why he created everything that he has, for us to see him in it, so that he would get the glory, and so that you could see how your story fits into his story. And this is what ordering your brain can do for you. This is what will set you free. So at the end of this video, myself and Ann Nolan share personal stories about how we've had to order our brain. So check that out at the end of this, and we will see you guys next time.
So before we were able to go out to Oklahoma, I want to talk a little bit more about the RAS for us and your brain, and how what you order, your brain brings to you. And so in this process, after this event happened, there were all of these things that you had to do. So my daughter was having to tell the story over and over and over again. I think she was interviewed 3 or 4 times. The hospital, the police officers, crisis centers, not to mention coming back home and having to tell the story with her family and her close friends, and for us all to sit there with her and be there for her through this. One of the things that I was noticing is that, but not realizing at this point, was that was contributing to her negative thought processes. And it was probably about 3 days into it before I called Dr. Lori and just said I'd like to come out there. And one of the things that she said, which really sort of shook me, it just was shocking to me, and then also to my family as I shared it with them, because I didn't even think about it. She said, she made that connection with me. She was the thermostat in the room. She told me that everything was going to be okay. She made me feel safe. She just brought in the hope that Jesus offers, which completely shifted the conversation. And then she gave me a really good reminder, which is, she said, Ann Nolan, you're going to have to go through what you have to go through with the authorities and even people in your close circle of friendship or family to tell them what happened. But if you're not careful, you're going to be telling and thinking about this event, this negative event, this evil that was brought into your life for hours and hours. And you might wake up and look up and you've spent 8 hours, I don't know, or more thinking about it. Of course, at this point, I'm thinking, 8 hours? I'm thinking 23 hours about this. This is dominating my thoughts. And I think what sort of jarred me was I was thinking I need to think about this for the welfare of my child. And I wasn't thinking about, I only need to give even this crisis, X amount of hours to think about a day. And then I need to go back into the presence of Jesus and thank him for the things that he had given us. Count all the ways that he had blessed us, all the things that we had going for us, that she had come home, that she had felt safe to come home to her family, that she immediately wanted to share this with us, that she hadn't felt isolated from us or ashamed, or that she just felt safe, and that we were able to hold her close, and she was safe now, and hope and healing was on the horizon, and it was available to her. And so starting to shift that and think about that listen, one of her suggestions was, maybe you even get a jar and you write down the things that you're gonna have to decide or spend time making decisions or thinking about, put them in the jar, and when you have to make that decision, then you pull it out and you deal with it. But you don't have to deal with it all right now. And if you sit there and stew and ruminate on the event, the more time you give it, the more you feed it, the more it's going to grow, and it's going to affect you. And that you've got to go reconnect with him, and the one who's in you is greater than he who's in the world. And so that was just a really huge revelation for me, and even for my family. They were like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. Sometimes when we think about not thinking on negative thoughts, we actually think we're doing someone that we care for a service by sitting there and, oh, I'm so sorry, tell me more, instead of lifting them up and encouraging them and giving them hope. And that was a real turning point for us. And I'm so grateful for that reminder. Also, we often think, and even the family that came around, as they were hearing, then they would imagine what happened. And how often do we say to each other, can you imagine what that would be like? No, we don't need to imagine what that would be like, because we weren't meant to. That God will give us the grace in the moment to get through whatever comes, but that's not meant for us. We were never meant to imagine it. We don't need to ruminate on it. So it really sort of brought things back into focus for me. Also, even little things like laying in bed with her and before she goes to sleep and thinking, let's decide, let's say a prayer and give this to Jesus, and then let's not think about it. Let's choose to put it aside and not think about this anymore before we go to bed, and fill our thoughts with things that are pure and lovely and praiseworthy before we go to sleep. And I remember her looking back at me and saying, Mom, I can't help what I think about. And for the first time in my life, I felt with confidence I could say, you can though. We are not held captive to our thoughts are not in control of us. We are in control of our thoughts. We have the ability to choose. I'm not going to think about that right now. It may be hard. It may be against our second nature and what we've been raised to do, but we have the ability to stop that, and that's it. I've given it enough, and now I'm going to shift back to Jesus. And so those were really good reminders for us before we even got to go out there and receive healing and meet with Jesus in a more powerful way, of just little things that we need to be putting in place in a crisis situation. They're incredibly helpful, and the knowledge of how the brain works and what you order is what it's going to bring you. It was just incredibly helpful for us.
So, if the reticular activating system brings to your brain what you order, then it's really important what you're ordering. So let me take you all the way back to whenever I was told that I wouldn't be able to manage my finances. When the doctor said that because of all of the things that had happened to me, they said I'd experienced too much trauma and I'd done too many drugs for my brain to be able to operate in normal human society. And so with that, they said, you're not going to be able to do whatever the thing was. And one of those things was to manage my finances. They said I wouldn't be able to have a bank account. I wouldn't be able to be in charge because I lacked impulse control, because I'd go manic and be psychotic and then buy the most ridiculous things like kiddie pools and try to fill them with pudding snack packs and things like that. And they were like, that's not going to be good for you. So you're going to need someone else on your bank account. And I was like, okay. And that's what I believed. So they told me that, and then I took that on as part of my identity. Molly, someone who will never manage their finances. Molly, who struggles with impulse control and cannot manage her finances. And this is what I thought. So, cut to, I get to No Boundaries International, and I'm in this community. And at some point, I start seeing that everyone's buying things online. It was on Amazon. And I was super excited because I was like, well, hang on. They have 1-day shipping. I want to be able to buy things on Amazon and online. And I was like, well, guess what you need for that? A card. And guess what you have to have a card? A bank account. So I'd probably been with No Boundaries for a solid year. And so I came to them and I was like, I want to be able to buy things online. I need a card. And they're like, well, what are you using now? Like, where's your money now? And you guys, it was a Tide Pod box, like a laundry detergent box, had all of my change and all of my cash. And then if I ever needed money, I would reach my hand in and hope for the best. And that's how I managed my finances, because I believed that I wouldn't be able to ever do that. And so that's what I really thought. And so then I lived into it. Again, if you believe that you're not okay, you behave like you're not okay. If I believe that I can't manage my finances, I'll behave like I can't manage my finances. So then what would happen is at some point they were like, well, we'll help you. We'll help you get a bank account. So I go to the bank with one of our team members, and I'm super nervous because I think this isn't going to work out for me. I'm not going to be able to do this. I struggle in all these areas. And so we go and we meet with a super sweet lady, and she hands me the paperwork and she says, and if you sign up with us today, you will get a $200 like bonus. Like if you swipe your card so many times or something like that, then they'll add $200 to that bank account. And I was like, heck yeah, free money. That sounds great. I definitely want to do this. However, did I really? Because then when it came time to like fill out the paperwork, I just couldn't do it. And so what happened was the teammate, she was like, here's the thing, Molly, I will fill out, the forms, because it was a lot of forms and a lot of paperwork. She's like, I'll help you fill out these forms. And then after we like kind of finished that, she pushed, it was a gray folder. I can see it in my brain so clear. She pushed it across the thing and across the table, and she's like, I can't do the rest. Like the rest has to be you. And the rest would mean that I would take that folder and I would take my money and I would take it to the bank and deposit all of my life savings. And that was going to be my part. So I couldn't do it because I was just like, you guys, once I get this bank account, I'm going to buy everything online and I'm going to be the most horrible finance manager because I can't do this. And they just said, well, what if that's not true? What if you can manage your finances? And then I laughed and said, haha, we'll see. You have no idea. Try to buy a kiddie pool and fill it with pudding. You have no idea. So then what would happen is a whole entire literal calendar year would go by. And then I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. Today is the day. I'm going to do it. I'm going to manage my finances. What they said can't be true. I know Jesus and I know that he's going to help me. And I know that he's called us to steward things, that he gives us finances to steward. Like that's literally what he does. And so I got in my car and I got my Tide Pod bank account box and I drive to the bank, and the whole time I'm rehearsing in my head, my name is Molly and I'd like to open a bank account. My name is Molly and I'd like to open a bank account. My name is Molly and I'd like to open a bank account. And I was like, all right, brain, calm down. You're safe. You can do this. And I marched myself right into the bank and I slapped my Tide Pod box down and I said, hello, my name is Molly. I'd like to open a bank account and I would like the $200 that you promised me last year. And the lady, the teller, just kind of looked at me and smiled and she said, we can do $150. But that's when I first started believing that I could do this. That what if what was spoken over me before wasn't true? That what if I could manage my finances? And what if I could have a bank account? And what if I could online shop, which has been literally the most fun thing ever? Like, what about that? And then finally, at some point, I just started believing it.
And I ordered my brain to say, no, Molly, you're good at managing your finances. You're good at managing yourself. You can do this. You and Jesus can manage your finances. And I trust you with him, and I trust you to make good decisions. You make good decisions. And I would say my affirmations in the morning, literally in the mirror, of I trust you, and I trust you to make good decisions, and I trust you with Jesus. And I would say these things over and over until that's what I'm ordering my brain to think about. So finally, then it just became second nature. That I knew that I could manage my finances. I have a bank account now. I love having a bank account. I love shopping online. And I love that then when something did happen and I needed money to fix my car, that I could go and do it without thinking there's not going to be any money in there, or I haven't planned for this, or I don't know where I'm going to get this money, or I spent it all on something crazy. But then I could do it. And so here we are today with a bank account and stewarding our finances exactly how he's leading us. It's been super fun.